Ladies and gentlemen, and Jimmy Randy fans who are too exhausted to turn off your sets. I'd like to say that our sponsors are bringing you this next half hour as a public service to sell soap. It's not that they think you're dirty, no, or anything like that, you understand. It's just that they like to sell soap. That seems to make them happy. You know, some people just, they like to sell soap. Darn these filter tips. I'm always lighting the wrong end. Are you always lighting the wrong end? I'm always. But of course, that's the story of my life. I'm always on the wrong end of things. Like in crowded restaurants when a waiter spills a bowl of soup. And like take fires, you know, public fires. Like when the policeman says, everybody step back, I'm the guy they all step back on. And like take dead-end streets. I am possibly the only motorist in the country who ever went down a dead-end street, turned around, and then discovered that the other end was dead too. And there we were, my wife and I, trapped in a cul-de-sac. Fortunately, this particular time, Alice was wearing 3 petticoats, and we could spell out help. So there you are. And here I am, and here's the show.
Dial Shampoo, the new squeeze bottle shampoo that gives you that diamond sparkle look. And mild, fragrant Dial Soap that stops perspiration odor before it starts presents The George Gobel Show. Starring George Gobel. With Hollywood's Jeff Hunter. Ravenna, Ohio's Peggy King. Alder Ray's Jeff Donnell. Our very own John Scott Trotter and his orchestra.
The soap that gets you extra clean is Dial, Dial, Dial. The soap with hexachlorophene is Dial, Dial, Dial.
Even when perspiring, you won't worry about odor if you use Dial soap every day. Let me show you why. Normal perspiration has no odor until it comes up against skin bacteria. They cause the odor. But ordinary good soaps can't remove bacteria effectively. Thousands are left on the skin, sort of like this. But washing with Dial takes away up to 95% of these troublemakers. Dial's hexachlorophene does it. There's nothing else as good at removing bacteria. And it clings to your skin, keeping you fresh all day. That's how Dial stops odor before it starts. And Dial smells good. Aren't you glad you use Dial soap? Don't you wish everybody did?
Now settle back and relax, friends, for here's the star of our show. The young man who now finds himself on the wrong end of a television set. George Gobel.
This is Academy Award time here in Hollywood, the exciting, glamorous home of the Nut Burger. Also the Golf Burger. And also the Wish Burger. And a friend of mine named Sam Burger. Now, see, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences is about to give awards for the best performances, but they won't give any awards to the fellow who really does the truly hard work in the movie business. So tonight we honor the unsung heroes of the mighty cinema industry. Our first annual award to the best movie-goers of the year 1954. The envelope, please. Thank you. He's been working pretty hard. The shine has all gone out of his leather bow tie. For the outstanding performance by a male moviegoer during the year 1954, the award goes to Mr. Emmanuel Kant of Chagrin Falls, Ohio. On August 4th, 1954, Mr. Kant accompanied his 7-year-old son to a kiddie matinee at the Taj Mahal Theater and sat through 6 Mickey Mouse cartoons, 6 Donald Ducks, 2 Tom and Jerry's, one of which was a movie, 3 Mr. Magoo's, 17 coming attractions, 5 musical short subjects, 4 musical long subjects, a Pete Smith specialty, 4 intermissions, 7 travelogues, 9 chapters of a Spaceman serial, 4 newsreels, and 2 double feature westerns in 3D with stereophonic sound. Now, we regret to announce that Mr. Kant's award will have to be made posthumously. I understand that his 7-year-old son was to have accepted for his father, but the kid is still in the movie. And now for the next award. For the second, well, fates preserve us, said Mrs. Jervis. We have here a double award. For the outstanding performance by a female moviegoer, the award goes to Mrs. Oswald Spengler of Tacoma, Washington, who on the night, I should say, of April 29th, 1954, participated in an action in the Tony Curtis Memorial Theater. Mrs. Spengler, with utter disregard for her own safety and entirely surrounded by 6 ushers, an assistant manager, a cashier, and 2 popcorn girls, all of whom had falsely accused her of attempting to sit on the main floor with a balcony ticket, and armed only with a large pongee pocketbook, stormed her way from the mezzanine, through the powder room and main lobby to arrive victoriously at 8th row center, where she sat triumphant until she was hosed down by the fire. Double award to Mrs. Spengler, the most courageous female movie patron of 1954. Award number 2, and she won this one going away. The soggiest. And now for a few special awards. To the most ingenious movie exhibitor of the year, to the Center brothers, Irvin and Leo, proprietors of the Love Nest Drive-In Theater at Great Neck, South Carolina, who increased their attendance 360% in 1 week by not showing any movie. For the most conscientious usher of 1954, to Mr. Bert Gold, usher extraordinary, who seated 250 patrons in 136 seats with the aid of only a burned-out flashlight and a few crude remarks. Now for the outstanding technological advance of 1954, to Miss Dora Sherry, Newark, New Jersey, candy counter salesgirl at the Acropolis Theater, for making 230 gallons of orange juice from a single orange. Ladies and gentlemen, we salute you. And I don't want anybody to get the idea that I don't care very much for movies, because I really care very much for movies. I go to them all the time. It's just like going to a show, like to me. Like only last night I went to one with Alice, but when we were coming home, I could just kind of sense that she was disposing herself for a dispute.
George?
See? She can't hardly wait to get started. What is it, Rocky?
Just what do you mean by Rocky?
Oh, come on, Alice. Let's quit kidding now. I know that you've been just spoiling for a spat ever since we got home from the Barefoot Contessa meets Abbott and Costello's Chiropodist.
Jokes, jokes, jokes. George Gobel, you're always belittling everything.
You're always be big in everything.
George, why can't you be gallant and exciting and romantic?
Honey, I'm gallant and exciting and romantic. It's just that you're never around at the right time.
George, George, I've been around here for 12 years. And there were leap years that I wish I hadn't asked you.
Do you suppose life would be any better if you were married to someone else?
I know it would.
Like with whom else, for instance?
Like anybody else, for instance.
For instance.
Like that good-looking fellow in the movies. For instance, Jeff Hunter.
What do you suppose life would be like with that, for instance, Jeff Hunter?
Idyllic.
If you were married legally?
I can just imagine what it would be like.
Well, I can't.
Well, I can. And if you'll just get out of here, I'll show you.
Do that. Do that. Do that. And as we say down at the Princeton Institute for Advanced Studies, I'm off like a herd of turtles. Now, while Alice is getting ready to show me something, our sponsor is getting ready to show you something, so please pay very close attention because, as I previously mentioned, they do like to sell soap. Yes, they do.
Smart teenagers are finding that Dial soap is made to order for their complexions. Know why? Surface blemishes are often spread and made worse by skin bacteria, and ordinary good soaps just can't remove them effectively. Look, they leave thousands of skin bacteria, sort of like this. When you put on makeup, they're free to cause trouble underneath. But washing daily with Dial clears away up to 95% of them. For Dial contains hexachlorophene, the most effective bacteria remover known, and it clings to your skin. So Dial protects your complexion all day, even under makeup. That's why teenagers, and their mothers too, love gentle Dial soap.
Now then, before Alice shows me what life would be like with Jeff Hunter, for instance, will you stroll over this a ways because I got some shopping to do anyways. Hi, Peggy.
Hi, George.
What are you doing here?
Oh, I'm returning this gun I got from my little cousin Danny.
Gee, Dad, a Jean Autry air rifle.
What are you doing here, George?
Oh, I'm here to return a little gift that I bought for Greg. It's an Anthony Eden yo-yo.
What are you going to exchange it for?
Well, I don't know, but I know Greg would be crazy about that there air rifle right there at Aaron.
Really? Mm-hmm. Well, that's funny, because Danny's a real big Anthony Eden fan.
Really? Yeah. Shall we?
Let's.
Okay.
Now, George, I have to go now and sing my song.
Oh, Peg, sing your song right here. See, I'll tell you what, you stand right on this mark right chair, and I'll give you a cue.
Okay.
You see that target back there?
Uh-huh.
All right, when you hear the bell ring, you sing.
Oh, George, you think you can really hit that?
Don't you ever worry about old Annie Oakley Gobel, Peg. I got an eye like a house detective.
Well?
Well, don't get panicky, Peg. I'm a very slow shooter.
A little love that slowly grows and grows, not one that comes and goes. That's all I want from you. A sunny day with hopes up to the sky, a kiss and no goodbye. That's all I want from you. Don't let me down or show me that you care. Remember, when you give, you also get your share. Don't let me down, I have no time to wait. Tomorrow might not come when dreamers dream too late. A little love slowly grows and grows, not one that comes and goes. That's all I want from you. Don't let me down, oh, show me that you care. Remember, when you give, you also get your share. Don't let me down, I have no time to wait. Tomorrow might not come when dreamers dream too late. A little love that slowly grows and grows, not one that comes and goes. That's all I want from you. That's all I'll ever want from you.
Peggy, that is prettier than pink popcorn in a purple poke.
Oh, thank you, George.
You're welcome.
And I would like to thank John Scott Trotter for his beautiful arrangement of the song.
Thank you, Peggy. And let me say it's a privilege to work with so fine an artist as you.
Well, it's a privilege and an honor to work with so distinguished a musician as you, John Scott.
I treasure every moment of our association, Peggy.
You are a constant source of inspiration to me, Mr. Trotter.
I'm delighted, Miss King.
Ladies and gentlemen, the hour of charm. And now, while Uncle John and Peggy have been out here telling big lies to each other, Alice has been quite busy behind the curtain getting ready to show me what life would be like if she had married, for instance, Jeff Hunter. Instead of me, that is. Alice, are you ready? Alice? Honey? Open the curtain. Hoot.
Yeah?
What do you call this?
Research.
Oh, come on now. Break it up now. Cut it out, you guys. Come on now. Let me get in there, Alice. Now, let me just back there like that. You get out of my house, you male starlet, you.
George, in this scene, I'm married to him.
Yeah. So you get out of my house, you trial-sized Sonny Tufts.
Trials. I just double dare you to make me. I said make me, not take me. Alice,
Isn't this wonderful? George is jealous. Oh, this is going to be so much fun. Now, you make like it's 5:30 in the afternoon, and I'm Mrs. Jeff Hunter. And I'm waiting for my handsome husband to come home from a hard day's work at the studio. Now, everybody watch. You especially, George.
I'm watching.
Hark! My Jeffrey's at the front gate. He's at the garden gate. He's at the bridge.
He fell in the moat.
Alicia.
My love!
We tried that one time. Broke the crystal on my watch.
Oh, my darling. Poor vous.
Oh, poor little moi.
To the rarest of jewels, this bauble.
Oh.
Fine husband, he doesn't even know her size.
Come, my darling. Make yourself comfy, cozy, while I mix us a drink. Ambrosia.
Fine recipe for ambrosia. He left out the lanolin. That's the stuff that makes it smooth.
To my darling. All day long, I've been hugging Susan Hayward. Kissing Marilyn Monroe. And dancing with Deborah Paget. But as beautiful as they all are, my pet, they all pale into insignificance when compared to your radiant, glowing beauty.
Oh. See, George?
Yeah, I can see. I can see pretty good. He can't see worth a darn, but I can see
George, go on, my gallant, handsome, appreciative husband.
Oh, I've had about enough. Alice, I get the idea of the thing. Close the curtain out there, but don't anybody go away, because I'm going to whip out of this setting right around in front, and I'll explain the whole thing to you. Now, see, that's Alice's idea of how life is with a movie star, and she gets these spooky ideas reading them movie magazine articles, you know, like, Hollywood's 10 most eligible bachelors and when they will be free again. And like, I fought for both sides during Gone with the Wind, and, the Milton Sills nobody knows. But see, I know what life with a leading man is really like. I mean, I know. I know what life is. I want to show you what life with one of them dudes is really. Open the curtain back there.
Now look! Don't you start that. My lips are tired from kissing Susan Hayward all day long. My arms are aching from hugging Marilyn Monroe. My feet are killing me from dancing with Deborah Paget. Tonight, I got to go to a preview of a picture starring 3 people I can't stand. This morning, Luella Parsons misspelled my name. And to top off everything, I gotta get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go on location with a herd of goats.
Jeffrey!
So stop that nagging! I told you, don't you Jeffrey me. I got enough to put up with, see? I don't want to come home and be nagged, see? So keep your big fat mouth shut and don't say nothing to me, see?
Georgie!
listen to me when I tell you something. You know, I'll tell you one thing. I may not be the best-looking chap in town, but long after them tall, handsome dudes have lost their looks, I'll still be short. Yeah, well, will you excuse us? We'll be right back. We just got, maybe our friendly announcer could slip in a few friendly words here.
Well, all righty. And tell everybody the George Gobel Show is brought to them by the makers of Dial Shampoo, the new squeeze bottle shampoo that gives you that diamond sparkle look, and mild, fragrant Dial soap that stops perspiration odor before it starts.
Oh, before I say anything else, my lawyer has asked me to read something to you here. It says, the characters portrayed on this program tonight were fictitious, and any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, is their problem. Now then, the reason that I read this disclaimer is because I don't want some movie star who spent the day kissing Susan Hayward and hugging Marilyn Monroe and dancing with Deborah Paget and then came home and fell in his moat to write me a nasty letter. Now, I'd like to thank my fellow players for their splendid contributions to the American theater this evening. Jeff?
Yes, George?
See, the part of Alice Gobel is really played by Jeff Donnell. Jeff?
Yes, little bitty buddy?
Jeff, how come a big, good-looking dude like you has got a girl's name?
Well, you see, George, Jeff is really my nickname.
Oh.
My real name is Alice.
Well, that clears that up nicely, I would say. Now, where are you going after the show, Alice?
Well, I'm going out to 20th Century Fox and see their new picture called The Racers, starring Kirk Douglas.
Oh, are you really?
No, but I thought that was a pretty good place to get in a plug for a good picture.
That's pretty shrewd the way you did that there, I'll tell you. Are you in the Racers?
No, but I'm in White Feather.
Oh, I'll bet you look good in feathers. I see by the old clock on the wall it's time to be moseying along, so this is your old friend, Lonesome George, with a message from the Forestry Service. If you plan on visiting any of our national parks over the weekend, please be sure to put out your campfire before leaving the house. So long, neighbor.
This is Del Sharp.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very glad to be back. I was here yesterday for the rehearsal. And I'll tell you what we were rehearsing. We're rehearsing this new show. My name is George Gobel. I just thought I'd tell you that there. We're having this new show, and it's George L. Gobel, really, but the L doesn't mean anything. It's just so that I can have GLG embroidered on my shirts. That's pretty slick right there, because that keeps my stuff from getting mixed up at the laundry with Greta Garbo's. My father's name was George Gobel also, and it's a funny thing, but he never got his stuff mixed up at the laundry with Greta Garbo's. I mean, some people just... Although I will say this now, that he did look a little silly one time in a pair of Greer Garson's culottes. But that's beside the point. Now, my grandfather's name was George Gobel, too, which is largely due to the fact that his father's name was George Gobel. And his father's father's name was George Gobel, and his father's father's name was George Gobel, and his father's father's name was Prince Valiant. So there you are. And here I am, and here's the show.
Dial Shampoo, the new shampoo that gives your hair a diamond sparkle. And mild, fragrant Dial soap that stops perspiration odor before it starts. And now Dial brings you from Hollywood, George Gobel. In the George Gobel Show, starring George Gobel, with his guest, Mr. Fred McMurray, Miss Peggy King, John Scott Trotter and his orchestra, of all people, is the great, 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 great grandson of Prince Valiant.
Now you can see that I wasn't lying to you. See, that's the kind of fella I am. Honest, straightforward, trustworthy, dull. Well, I'll tell you the kind of fella I am. If you want to know the kind of fella I am, I'll tell you just the kind of fella I am. See, I'm the kind of a fella, like if I hear somebody on the radio say, run down to your neighborhood store, well, I run. Well, you can laugh, but a lot of people walk. I run, because in the first place, I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings, and them fellas on the radio, they know whether you walk or run down to your neighborhood store. Because them storekeepers, they all belong to Tom Mix's straight shooters, and they report all that stuff right away. And that's the kind of show this is going to be. Nobody's going to be running around here on a dead run and telling you a lot of big lies, like me. See, if I tell you a lie, I'll tell you that it's a lie. Unless I'm lying, of course, which I won't. I mean, I don't anymore, hardly. Now, this show, I want to tell you what it's about and what it's like. It's kind of hard to see. It's a sort of a, well, you might call it a comedy show, is what you might. Now, you might call it a lot of things before we're through, but that's what we're going to call it, a comedy show. We figure it's our show. We'll call it whatever we feel like calling it. We'll call it a comedy show. But, I mean, don't get the idea that this is the greatest show in the world, or, I mean, it's not hilarious, maybe jocular, or well, it might just keep you from getting sullen. I'm going to have to tell you a few things that we're going to have on the show. Now, for one thing, we're going to have chorus girls. I think they're nice. And, of course, most variety television shows have chorus girls, but I think we have been very fortunate in that particular regard, because we have a wonderful, well, I mean, they're right back here now. This is our chorus, and we'd like for you all to meet them. Curtain, please. I would like to announce to you sports in the audience that some of these girls aren't married. Now then, what are you girls going to sing for us?
We don't sing.
Well, I'll be a dirty bird. You dance then?
No, we don't dance.
Well, do you play musical instruments or ride unicycles or do close order drill or anything like that?
We don't do anything.
Oh. Well, see, that's what I was telling you just a few minutes ago. That's why we hired these girls, for their honesty. Now, another thing that's very important in any musical show or any variety show is the music. And I think that I don't like to brag on myself usually, but we do have one of the finest musical directors who ever shook a stick. I mean, he's a Toscanini, a Kostelanetz, a Stokowski, and a Tweet Hogan all rolled into one. And I'm sure you all know who I'm talking about, John Scott Trotter. Mr. John Scott, how are you, John?
I thank you, sir.
Sir. Sounds like we have a little of the Duke of Paducah rolled in there, too.
Well, I thank you, George, for those comparisons you made in my introduction, but, you know, I'm a little puzzled. Who is Tweet Hogan?
Well, I'll be a dirty bird. Tweet Hogan is a very fine musician friend of mine from Chicago. He had a society band back there.
Really?
Wonderful band. It wasn't a big band. 9 pieces.
9.
All drums. Well, they weren't drums, really. They weren't drums. They were tom-toms is what they were.
You mean all 9 men played tom-toms?
Ever Tom, Dick, and Harry. These boys you got back here, this is a good lively bunch, John, you know what?
Thank you.
They really, and they keep good time, too, you know what? I know, I timed them before. Dicky, very good. What's this, the music
This
here?
is the music, George. All new stuff, all new arrangements for the show.
That's good. Do you mind if I look at it?
No, go right ahead.
You got some dandies here. I was looking at it. Here's one. We had an old cow who wouldn't give no milk, so we sold him. So here's another one. The bullfight fans all shouted "Olay" as the bull ripped Hernando's hideaway. Hey, how about this one right on top? Is that pretty tough? I mean...
No, what's that? I'll see if the boys remember it.
Right.
Number one, gentlemen. It's funny to some of you, but you can't blame the fellow. Now, after all, 17 years with the same show. 17 years, man and boy. Bing was a man and Gary was a boy. And now, ladies and gentlemen, while Mr. John Scott Trotter is trying to pull himself together, I say there's a project right there. We would like you to hear a word from our sponsors. And incidentally, that's another important thing if you're going to have a television show is sponsors. In fact, you can't hardly even turn a crank until you get one. And I want to tell you, we have two of the nicest crank sponsors the show ever had. Like the Dial Soap folks, for instance, they have a little movie that they're going to show to you now. And as they hardly ever used to say in the Navy, now see this.
How would you like to win an oil well and have money flowing in for years? That's the grand prize in Dial Soap's big contest. In addition, 206 cash prizes every week for 6 weeks. And to one of the 6 weekly winners, the full operating income from a producing oil well or $25,000 cash. To enter, write a 2-line jingle starting, "I'm glad I used Dial." Last word in both lines must rhyme. For example, "I'm glad I used Dial. I wish everyone would. For Dial stops odor in a way that is good." Put each entry on a separate piece of paper, print name and address, send with Dial wrapper to Dial, Box 7199, Chicago 77. That's Dial, Box 7199, Chicago 77. Entries received after midnight Saturdays judged in next week's contest. Get complete rules and entry blanks where you buy Dial soap. Enter every week. You may win cash or an oil well and have money flowing in for years.
Now, about that big oil well contest, I feel it's only fair to tell you that, well, some of you people are going to lose. Now, the next thing that a variety television show requires is a very fine guest star, and we're delighted to have as our first guest that very handsome, one of the most popular and handsome leading men in pictures today, Mr. Fred McMurray. You know, that's right. This dude is handsome.
George, you're too kind.
Oh, I'm too short.
Well, George, this is your first show, and I just want to wish you all the luck in the world, because you're a real fine fella.
Thank you.
And, George, just to kind of help you get things rolling along, I brought this.
Please, there'll be no smoking in the studio.
George, this is a saxophone. You do expect me to play, don't you?
Well, Mr. McMurray, we really don't.
Just call me Fred, huh?
Yeah, well, Mr. Fred, to tell you the truth, that's one of my pet peeves as far as television is concerned. They invite a guest star over, and then they make him work. And if you invite somebody to your home as your guest, you don't make him work.
No.
Isn't that right? So I'll tell you what we want you to do. We want you to come over here and sit down and just make yourself at home.
Well, now, wait a minute, George. You know, whenever I'm invited out, I'm usually asked to play the saxophone, and...
Yeah, well, that might be all right for some of them wild Hollywood parties.
Well, how about the clarinet, then?
No, I don't believe so.
Well, I'll tell you, how about a card trick?
No, we can't. We don't have...
I know what I can do. I can do a scene from Caine Mutiny. I just happen to have the boat outside. And...
Oh, yeah. Man, you don't seem to understand you're our guest. Now, just sit down here and just help yourself to the cookies, will you?
Just take it easy. Everything is going to be all right.
George, do you mean that you're paying me to come on this show and all you want me to do is sit here and eat cookies?
You're our guest.
Well, I'll be a dirty bird.
Now, look, Fred, I'm going over and introduce the girl singer. And they're the best kind, you know. Now, our sponsor wanted for a girl singer a sweet, wholesome, typical American girl, just like the girl that lives next door. And I was thinking pretty good at the time. I went home on a dead run, and I got the girl that lived next door to me, and here she is. Now, you can see how that didn't work out too well. So I did the only thing that a good, clean-cut, red-blooded American boy would do. I moved. A little moving music, please, John. And this is the house that I moved next door to. And you can see that's not the worst move I ever made.
Hello.
Good evening. I'm the typical American boy that lives next door.
Next door?
Uh-huh.
That's a pet shop.
Yeah, well, I'm a typical American eager beaver. What's your name?
Peggy King.
Oh, would you like to sing on my television show?
Oh. Uh-huh.
What would you like to sing?
A song?
I don't know how that goes.
I know how it goes, George.
Look, we're trying to say that you're supposed to be... Will you just... wait here just 1 second, please. Sing, Peggy.
No.
Now, come on.
Wait, Peggy, wait. Look, George, I have a recitation I could do. It'd be very appropriate at this time, you know, with the World Series and all. Casey at the bat.
Fred, it's real nice, but you're supposed to be our guest. Now, why don't you come down here and eat me a cookie?
Tear my pictures up and burn them. I don't want them, don't return them. If you do, there'll be the devil to pay. Burn 'em up and blow the ashes away. When you told me we were through life, I went out and found a new life. Find my old love letters tied up and blue. Burn 'em up right away, whatever you do. I wrote 'em, I sent 'em, I thought that I meant 'em, but I was a fool to write. My new love would burn up if those letters turn up. So please get a match and let 'em go up in smoke tonight. When you come to town, don't phone me. Make believe you've never known me. Gather up the records we used to play. Burn 'em up and blow the ashes away.
That was a wonderful arrangement.
Thank you.
It's really fine. I just have one little criticism.
What's that?
Well, I thought you might be able to use just one more saxophone.
Fred, look, you're supposed to be our guest. Prominently, John.
I know I'm your guest. I know
Why don't
this,
you come
George.
over here
I
and
know.
sit down like
Look,
you're-
it just isn't right my getting all this money and doing... I am getting the money.
Sure, you're getting the money,
Well,
but
all
you
right,
don't
then all
have...
I can say is that I feel very guilty taking the money and not doing anything to
Give
earn
it
it.
another thought. Just sit here and behave yourself and concentrate on the cookies.
I don't want to.
See, I'll tell you what,
George.
you better concentrate, because if you get one with a pink center, you win a left turn on Wilshire Boulevard.
George, tell me, how did you get into this business?
Well, I'm glad you asked me that, Fred. You see, up until about 7 or 8 years ago, I was in the Army, and then right after I was sprung, or separated, I should say, I'd used up my muster and out check, and my final pay, and my savings, and my wife's savings, and my 3.5-month-old boy's savings, and I cashed in my war bonds, and I took all the beer bottles back, root beer, that is, and it got to things got pretty grim. So this one morning, I was in my apartment, this is my apartment, but it's not really my apartment. See, like I say, we're not going to tell you any lies here. This is a facsimile. Oh. And it's not even what you call a reasonable facsimile, because the kind of apartment we had them days, well, you just can't hardly get them no more. So anyway, here's me. I'm in bed this one morning. That's one thing I learned in the Army. Sleep, boy.
George, get up. It's 11 o'clock in the morning.
Well, Alice, now that I've seen what it looks like one time, don't ever wake me at this unearthly hour again.
George! You've got to be the breadwinner. Don't you understand? In civilian life, the husband has to be the breadwinner.
Alice, believe me, I was down at that bakery shop all day yesterday, and my number didn't come up one time. You know, I believe that Schultz is running a crooked game.
George, you've been out of the Army 5 months now. You and your footlocker. And not one penny has come into this house.
Well, Alice, I told you not to quit your job. Now, let's don't make a big deal.
George, it's time you realized you have a wife and baby to support. You've got to work.
Work?
Yes.
Alice, didn't I fight a war for you?
So did Eisenhower. But you don't see his family starving. He didn't take to loafing just because the war was over. He went out and got himself a job as president.
Yeah, and you know how he got that job, too, don't you? Politics, that's how. Alice, if you'll excuse me, this is the time of day I usually wind my watch. And this is the time of day.
Now, listen, George. If you don't go out today and find a job, you'll blame me for the consequences.
Oh.
George, you've got to think of somebody besides yourself. You've got to think of me.
Alice. Didn't I fight a war for you?
So did Eisenhower.
Well, you can see how a guy can't stand that kind of nagging too long. A little bit after that, I got out of bed. Or I say a little bit after that. It wasn't really a little bit. I say a little bit, you know, but it wasn't a little bit. I say a little bit, but it wasn't really a little bit. It was the following spring that I got out. That's the way it was. And anyway, we have another cookie, Fred.
Look, George, I hate to be stubborn about this thing, but I still feel I ought to be doing something.
Well, Fred, you're a guest.
I know, but you're wasting me, George. I'm fairly versatile. I sing a little. Well, like in that last sketch you did just there. I could have played something in that.
Look, it was just Judith Ames playing Alice and me playing me. Now, Fred, what could you have played?
The saxophone.
But, Fred, I saw the Cane Mutiny, and I thought you were great. Now, you started that mutiny. Now, let's don't start another one here. And see, it's not that I have anything at all against the way you start mutinies, because I'll say this, you are a pretty good old mutiny starter when you get started starting one. But the idea is we just don't have the facilities here for a court-martial.
Okay, George. That's your attitude. I won't interrupt. You go ahead with your story.
Well, I'm not going ahead with the story.
No.
We'll go ahead with a movie. It's called Dial S for Soap.
The soap that gets you extra clean is Dial, Dial, Dial. The soap with hexachlorophene is Dial, Dial, Dial.
Even when perspiring, you won't worry about odor if you use Dial soap every day. Let me show you why. Normal perspiration has no odor until it comes up against skin bacteria. They cause the odor. But ordinary good soaps can't remove bacteria effectively. Thousands are left on the skin, sort of like this. But washing with Dial takes away up to 95% of these troublemakers. Dial's hexachlorophene does it. There's nothing else as good at removing bacteria. And it clings to your skin, keeping you fresh all day. That's how Dial stops odor before it starts. And Dial smells good. Aren't you glad you use Dial soap? Don't you wish everybody did?
All right now, folks. I just want you to take a card. Just any card at all.
Fred, you promised you're not going to interrupt. Now, come on, let's go.
Sorry.
Have a cookie, will you?
I don't want it. What are you going to do?
What am I going to do? I'm going to go on with my story. That's what I'm going to do. So after that, you see, I finally coaxed myself down to an employment agency. And the first thing this fellow had me do is sign my name on the back of the application under some very small, fine print. And I could see they'd been in business for quite a while. Now, see, I've always been a pretty shrewd kid, so I said, what was that I just signed there?
Well, Mr. Gobel, it's really nothing. Merely a contract guarantee under the terms of which you remit a nominal portion of your earnings to the agency on a fee-service basis.
Yeah, well, how small is the nominal portion I'm supposed to remit to this here agency?
Your first 3 months' salary.
Well, now, isn't that a little bit steep?
Well, it's for your benefit, Mr. Gobel. After all, if we're going to take 3 months of your salary, we're going to get you the highest paid job we can. Now, aren't we?
Sure you are.
Now, the first thing we should do is try to find what position is best suited to your aptitudes. Well, shall we look? Now, let's see what we have here. Oh, yes. Nuclear physicist? Thermodynamic technician? Investment analyst? No. Oh, here's a good one. Antibiotic research chemist.
Ditch digger? Sheep herder? No, must have owned crook. Taffy apple twister? Geiger counter?
Wait a minute, Mr. Gobel. Here is a great one. United Plumbers have an opening. Are you by any chance a steam fitter?
Well, now it all depends on what I have to fit this steam into here.
Frankly, Mr. Gobel, I found it very difficult to place a man with your particulars.
Well, I don't understand about all this particular business because I'm not too particular. I know what kind of job I want. I want a job that pays about $30 an hour, 1 day a week, time and a half for overtime, a partnership maybe, here maybe.
Mr. Gobel, that has all the earmarks of a dirty, un-American statement.
Friend, you're not questioning my patriotism.
I am.
Friend, didn't I fight a war for you?
So did Eisenhower.
Well, see, I could have stayed in bed and heard that, you know. But at least you all know how I happened to get started in this business, or at least you know how I didn't happen to get started in any other particular business, you know.
George.
Huh?
George, you got any more cookies?
No, but we do have just a little bit of time here, and I think if we hurry up, you'll have a chance now to play your saxophone.
Oh, thanks, George, but I don't want it now.
Yeah, well, how about a couple card tricks?
No.
A scene from one of your pictures?
No. I'll tell you, George, I've been sitting here thinking, and I've decided that you're right. A guest just be a guest. Well, I'm your guest, George, and your sponsor's guest, right?
Yes, George Gobel and Fred McMurray have been brought to you by the makers of Dial Shampoo, the new shampoo that gives your hair a diamond sparkle, and mild, fragrant Dial soap that stops perspiration odor before it starts.
Yes, sir, George, you've got the idea. A guest just ought to take his pay and take it easy.
Well, I'll be a dirty bird.
Want me to come back next week?
I'm not even sure I'm going to be back here next week.
Oh, yes. Yes, next week the George Gobel Show will be brought to you by Pet Evaporated Milk and Instant Pet Non-Fat Dry Milk.
Here's a miracle happening right before your eyes. These tiny snowflakes turn into delicious non-fat milk instantly. Yes, these magic snowflakes of new instant pet non-fat dry milk mix instantly as you add water and stir with a spoon. No shaking, no foaming. Make delicious, fresh-tasting non-fat milk instantly, whether you make a glass or a quart. These magic snowflakes are a brand new scientific development, rich in all the protein, minerals, and B vitamins of whole milk, yet so light they always mix instantly. It's delicious, with wonderful fresh milk flavor, and it's instant. You can use it for drinking, for cooking, any way you'd use milk. Instant Pet cuts milk bills in half. 1 jar makes 3 quarts of delicious non-fat milk. Get this new Miracle Milk product in the glass jar at your grocer's. If he doesn't have it now, he will soon. Instant Pet non-fat dry milk.
And now, Fred, that we've heard from my sponsors, would you like to say a word from yours?
Oh, yes, I would, George. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, Fred McMurray appeared on this program tonight through the courtesy of June Hafer.
Next week, our guest will be Angela Lansbury, and we hope we'll see you all again. And until then, this is your old friend, Lonesome George, hoping to be among the very first to wish you all a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
In tonight's cast, Judith Ames was Alice, and Bob Jellison was that fussy little man. The George Gobel Show is a Gomalco production.